As Canes development camp almost is ready to wrap up, we get to hear from Brind'Amour, Peter Harrold, and Jayden Perron on the latest edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I am your host, Zach Martin. I am the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I do some AHL coverage over at the Calder Times. I am the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with my duties over here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a very exciting Thursday episode for you all as we get to look at the last, on-ice activity day at the Carolina Hurricanes development camp. And we get to hear from head coach Brind'Amour, Hurricanes development coach Peter Harrold, and also get to go over the interview that Jayden Perron, one of the prospects, did with Canes beat writer Walt Ruff. But before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So like I said, on Wednesday, the Hurricanes had their 3v3 scrimmage game. Team Red against Team White. Of course, you guys, your goalies as well. Just, one last final day of on-ice activities for the guys before they go to Thursday and just do some educational stuff before they wrap up the really shortened 4-5 day Canes development camp. And there's a lot of cool stuff that went on over the last week. But it was cool that the fact that you got to see Brind'Amour kind of take time out of the day to talk to media and just go over things of over the past week and then what's to come and all that good stuff. So without further ado, let's not even wait to get there. Let's just automatically move it over to Brind'Amour and get his thoughts over the last week and everything else that's going around surrounding the Carolina Hurricanes.
Coach, you just want to talk about the new look of the team. Obviously, some guys you've been around a long time leaving and some new faces.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's going to be exciting, too, to get to know some new faces and, bring them into the group. And that's part of it. Unfortunate part of business in pro sports is you do have turnover. But I think it'll be a good opportunity for a lot of other guys to step up a little more maybe than they have in the past. And, exciting to see how it all comes together.
Ready? When you think about some of the recent additions in recent years, Brent Burns, Dmitry Orlov, some of them have been open about discussing how challenging it can be to fit in right away, and their game's grown in recent years. With a couple of new guys coming in on the back end, I know you've had Ghost before. What is it that gives you the optimism as the coach that things will settle in?
Yeah, there is familiarity with Ghost, like you said. I think with Walker coming in, he's excited to play the way we play. I think most players like the way we play and they want to do it because we are. I think up tempo and it's a fun way to play, and there's a learning curve on any team. Anywhere you go, there's going to be different lingo, different way we describe things. But at the end of the day, these guys are good hockey players, and if they have a willingness to get it, they will get it.
Have you talked to any of them, or I guess you have, but have you had any specific discussions where you can maybe tell them, hey, enjoy it while you can, or maybe savor this moment, that kind of stuff?
For what do you mean?
Like in terms of the prospects, like telling them to kind of not rush, I guess, to get to where they want to be.
I mean, they all want to be here today, but it is a process, and I think, especially for me now, I've been through this for a long time with the process. I get there is a learning curve, and it takes a few years, so you don't get too, overly excited. And we do have a lot of good talent, and I think we'll see them sooner than later, but they won't be the players that are at the top of their game for a few years yet. So we do have to kind of give them a little time.
How excited are you to work with Cam with the Wolves and your relationship with the team and kind of get your guys' style of play in at the AHL level?
Yeah. Well, it's important for him. I think, I like the fact that he's really willing to, learn what we're doing, and he wants to implement exactly how we play and likes the style of play that we have. So it's an easy sell to him, and I think he's going to do a great job.
You also, Don Waddell leaves as president and GM.
Yeah.
Is it reassuring to you as a coach in the organization to know that you know Doug Worf coming in and obviously with
I think we like I said, and I've been asked, but we definitely lost some real important people, well, not just hockey players. So you brought up Donnie. It was just a great guy to have around for all of us, and he was a good people person, and that's what this sport is. And it's not X and O's. I mean, it is, but it's about people. And, you lose good ones. You want to make sure you bring in someone that's good. And you just mentioned Doug, and Doug Worf we've known because he's been a Hurricane before, and bringing him in is just a great move by the organization. Quality people, and that's what we got to have around here.
You mentioned on the Joe's podcast the other day, you talked to a Duke head coach about the cycle of losing people and having to rebuild teams. Was that a first time thing that you've ever kind of thought about, and how has that kind of helped you mature in a way of?
Well, it was hard for me, I'll be honest, and so it's just a natural conversation with a college coach that goes through it all the time. You get attached to the guys or ladies, whatever your sport, whoever you're coaching, and especially when we've had them longer than 4 years, and so it was hard. I'll be honest. It was hard to watch guys walk out of here. I understand it. It's a business, and they got to do what they got to do. So, but then it's also exciting because you get a whole new group of guys coming in, and maybe some of these young guys that do crack the lineup and get to work with, and watch them grow. And so that's just the evolution of it.
Brett Pesci said it was tough calling you.
Yeah.
Say he was leaving. I imagine it was tough.
Yeah, I had a lot of tough calls this summer. I haven't really had too many of those. It's happened. We've lost some guys to free agency, and we have good players, and teams will pay them, and we can't pay everybody, and it's just how it goes, unfortunately. So, that was a tough call. Love those guys and wish them the best, and. Like I said, just excited now for the new guys coming that are excited to be here and get their game going.
You mentioned Doug Worf, but with Tulsky too. I mean, if he brought in a new GM from outside, he might have his own ideas. But
its familiarity is good, and I love that we're giving our guys opportunities. He's earned it. And from what I've seen so far, I've been around. I mean, we were. Free agency and the draft and all that. That's the most busy time that you're going to have, and he's certainly working his butt off. And obviously, it's a tough job at this time of year, and he's done a great job so far. So I think he'll be fine.
Do you find that, whereas Don had a lot of experience, do you find you're maybe having more conversations or giving more input with Eric about kind of working together?
I think he's been real smart about it. He wants to get up to speed on how things work. But you got to ask people. You got to ask people that are in the fight. And that's how he learns, too. So I think it's been a real good relationship. But I hadn't talked to him. He'd been here a long time. There wasn't a lot of communication because it just didn't need to be really, and now I feel like there is, and we spend more time in this last month together than we had for 10 years, so it's a good, I think it's going to be a real good relationship.
And does Darren being here still kind of add some more comfort knowing that, you got Doug, you got Eric, and Darren's still in his place?
It's, again, good people, and, Darren's been here forever too, and, running all this stuff, and, his role for the most part has been getting us these young kids and done a hell of a good job. So, we again, I just keep going back to we lose a good person in Don, we replace him with Dougie, and kept the rest up top. So I think that was real vital.
How about having Allie out here helping with the camp?
She's been great. And I think I heard her talk about it. It's good to get other coaches around and hear how they do things, and you pick up from everybody. Like, she's good on the skills and the skating stuff. And, maybe I don't use it with my NHL guys because I'm hoping they are pretty good skaters. But, I got a 12-year-old. You're learning. I don't know where I can implement it. What can I implement some of that stuff in a NHL practice maybe? But it's all about trying to get better. And the only way to do that is to bring in other people that have expertise. And, she does, for sure.
And the Kraken will have a female coach this year, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think hopefully at some point we, just in general, stop talking about, how they look in general and just they're there on their merits. You know what I mean? So.
All right. Thanks, Rod.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Awesome to hear from head coach Rod Brind'Amour and just, talking about how hard of a summer it's been for him, just, losing guys like Brady Shea, Steph Nason, Tavo Teravainen, Brett Pesce. It's one of those things where it's kind of tough. And of course, you lose Don Waddell as well. So it's a big change going from, you're coming into the offseason, think, okay, maybe you could, bring some guys back and, maybe the front office will do a lot of changes and you kind of, build off of this past season and go into the 24-25 season. Unfortunately, that's not the case. You have Eric Tulsky now as your general manager, which he's been doing a great job so far, I believe. Bringing in some guys like Sean Walker, Shane Gostisbehere comes back again. You add William Carrier, Jack Roslovic. You also add some depth pieces, Eric Robinson, Tyson Jost. It's just one of those things where it's definitely a upheaval in terms of what's going on. Of course, they're talking about possibly, maybe bringing some younger guys up. Are we looking at Bradley Nadeau, Felix Unger-Sorum, Scott Morrow? It all really depends on what's going on in terms of the Carolina Hurricanes. And I like at the at the end, the fact that, talk about, Jessica Campbell and the Seattle Kraken, how she's the assistant coach there. And it's good to see. It's good the fact that, we finally got our first female assistant coach in the NHL, but it's also like, we're going to get to a point where it's just, it's not the first of this, it's not the first of that. It's just, oh yeah, that's Jessica Campbell. She's the assistant coach of the Seattle Kraken, or there's someone else who's an assistant coach based on what their merits are and stuff like that. So it's good to see that. Yeah, it's awesome that the fact that Rod acknowledges that the Kraken did some really, historic, but it's also going to be like, we're going to get to a point where it's, that person is an assistant coach because of what their credentials are. And, they did a good job. So, but we're looking to hear from Rod, even in the offseason, the fact that you're at the rookie development camp and just everything that's going on, especially with the fact that you're talking about, all the upheaval in the offseason, and of course, trying to get ready for the 24-25 season as well with a whole bunch of new faces, one returning face, and all that good stuff. So we got to hear from Rod Brind'Amour. Now, in the next segment, we're going to hear from Peter Harrold, who is one of the Carolina Hurricanes development coaches, and get to hear his thoughts on everything that's gone on at development camp. We'll get to that here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, at the end of segment 1, we're going to go and listen to Peter Harrold as he talks to media as well on Wednesday, one of the Hurricanes development coaches, and get to hear his side of things of what's going on with camp so far and everything that's been surrounding that, and also some of the prospects. So without further ado, we're going to move on to Peter and listen to what he had to go over with the media.
These kids out here and getting a good assessment of them and kind of teaching them how to be a pro, I think, is probably your main focus.
Yeah, that's one of them. I think the biggest thing for us is getting to know them a bit, right? We got to develop relationships with them, and they got to be able to trust us. Obviously, you can buy some credibility on the ice by knowing what you're talking about, but they don't know us. And a lot of these kids, they're 18 years old, so there's some things that, yes, we got to talk to them about as far as life goes, but our biggest job is to develop relationships and help them progress as players, but as men, too.
How beneficial is a camp like this to the kids? Because they're young and obviously growing into the game, but how important is a camp like this?
I think it's pretty important. Obviously, I'm biased, but for some of them, it's their first time over in the U.S. Some of them, we can give them some pointers, things to work on. Some of them, it's just good to meet each other, right? So a lot of this is getting used to the staff, but some of it is getting used to each other, learning to meet each other, and then just have some fun. I think that's a huge part of this, and that's what this week is about, I think.
Just overall, what's the biggest difference you see between kids that are coming back a second time?
I think they're just a little more comfortable, right? Some of them, like I said, first time over in the U.S., there's a lot of new things, and maybe a little nervous, a little hesitant. I think they're just more comfortable. They know more guys, so there's just that level of comfort for them. But yeah, we got a great group here. Honestly, like all of these guys were pretty outgoing, which is great. You don't have to pull many of them out of their shell. Obviously, we got some language issues with a couple of them, but honestly, this has been a great group. So,
how many languages do you speak now?
One and a little bit of Spanish. That's
and that doesn't do you any good.
No. It turns out French or Russian would have been more appropriate choice. So.
What's it look like for these kids down the road after they finish with this camp?
Well, a lot of them are going to go back and play with their clubs in Sweden, Finland, Russia. Some of them are going back to college, junior. So some of it is just, these are the things you can work on. We introduced them to some of our systems. They're not going to play those systems when they get there, but I think it's just trying to build that familiarity with the way we comport ourselves, the way we play, that kind of stuff. And then for them, it's just about doing what the coaches ask them where they are. We'll follow up with them. We do video work with them throughout the year. And, just trying to help them progress on the ice, off the ice, but really kind of being a sounding board for them sometimes is the best we can do. And I think it's beneficial to them to have resources to ask questions that, as a head coach, it's hard to have a lot of one-on-one time with 23 guys. So we can give them that one-on-one time, and I think it's that's beneficial to them both on and off the ice.
Will they have exit interviews, and if so, what will that be like?
Yeah, most of them we'll kind of pull aside. A lot of it is just things that they need to work on, the improvement that we've seen since last year, and then just making sure that if they have questions, we can answer them, and making sure that they leave here knowing exactly what they need to work on, what they need to do, and what the year is going to look like.
What's the most common question? Other than
from the players?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's just one common one. I think a lot of them want to know, okay, when are we going to start doing video work and that kind of stuff. Some of their seasons start pretty soon here, so into August we get started and then we're at it. So for me, it's fun because we get to start earlier and we don't have to wait for training camp. But most of it is on ice questions. Some of them it is, what should we be looking for? What do we need to work on to make it to the NHL? And a lot of it is just, they're pretty simple answers for depending on what the position is. There's a handful of things that everyone can get better at, and the better they are at those fundamentals, the better their chances are in the long term.
Did you know Cam Abbott at all before coming here? And then also just getting him here in time for something like this, I'm assuming, is really important because he's going to be working with a handful of these guys at least immediately.
Yes, it was super important to have him here, actually. I played against him. I want to say he might have been a year above me, but he played at Cornell, and I played at BC, so they knocked us out of the playoffs or out of the NCAA tournament my first year. But we have a lot of friends. Hockey's a small community, so we're 1 or 2 degrees away from each other for a long time. He was overseas for a long time, so I didn't interact with him much, but this week's been great. He's going to bring the exact kind of personality we need. He's a lot like Roddy, which is really beneficial for the players on all fronts. So I think him coming here, getting to know the players, but also the staff he's going to be working with. So again, I think it was huge for him to be here, and we were pumped to have him.
What kind of player was he?
He was a grinder, I think. Some skill for sure. But he worked his tail off, and he does the bike test we do, and he's a workout aficionado. So a lot like Roddy. So it's again, great personality, fits right in. I think the Hurricanes organization suits him very, very well.
How was your experience working with Allie this week?
It was great. She knows her stuff. Let her run those sessions. Everything that she did was very, very good. Took the boys through it. Really good at explaining drills. Really touching on things that are important to the game. And we're all thankful that she was here. It was a great experience, and happy to have her back whenever.
All right. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Really awesome to hear from Peter Harrold just talking about Allie Lacombe and how they let her kind of run her setups and stuff like that because of the fact of what she's good at, and just giving her the opportunities to run her thing and watch and listen and just observe. So that's really cool. And then also talking about the different aspects of trying to help develop the guys and help them become pros, especially with the fact that some they're going back to their countries. Are you going back to Europe? Are you going to junior? How's that going to work out too? And of course, you're going to have some of the guys who are going to come over and stay in North America, like Felix Unger-Sorum, and what's kind of next to help them build the rest of their summer and get ready for the season that's coming up. Whether it's for some guys, maybe it's going to be the AHL with Chicago Wolves. Could be going back to junior. Also going to be going, like I said, could be back to Europe as well. So a lot going on, but really awesome to hear from one of the development coaches in Peter Harrold and just kind of getting the inside of what goes on in development camps and like what their goals are as development coaches, especially on a week like this where you're going from like Sunday to Thursday, where it bookends with off ice stuff, and then in the middle you got like 3 days of on ice activities and stuff like that. So really awesome to see, really awesome to hear, just from a different aspect of the Hurricanes. And it's more not so much like the coaching staff, but more of like the coaches that are behind the scenes with their prospects. So really awesome to hear from Peter Harrold. And talking about prospects, Jayden Perron actually did get to sit down with Walt Ruff of the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer and answer some questions and all of that, which we'll get to and review here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. All right, guys, we got to talk about GameTime. And with GameTime, they are the authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. The thing I really like about GameTime is the fact that you get some really great last-minute deals. Their flash deals and their zone deals even make the app better for you to check and maybe help save some money along the way as well. And the one feature I really like is their views from their seat venue, where you can actually see what you're looking at before you get to the event itself. But going back to the deals I was talking about, with their last-minute deals, you can actually save up to 60% off when buying tickets last minute for sports, along with concerts, comedies, theater, and so much more. So it's not just sports you're saving money on, but just hobby events that you like going to as well, and your favorite concerts, comedians, and all that. You get to save on there as well. With their flash deals, you can save more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event itself. And with their zone deals, this is a feature where you get to choose the section, but you let GameTime choose the seat for you. And speaking of seats, their panoramic view seat finder is a great feature in the app that I think you'll enjoy, because you never know when you get tickets to certain arenas or certain events, you don't know what you're going to be looking at. But with their panoramic viewfinder, you can actually see what you're going to be looking at before you even buy the tickets, even before you get to the venue. So no obstructive views, nothing getting in your way, maybe some bad angles. All of that is taken care of with this seat feature. So with all that being said, take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, at the end of segment 2, we get to kind of dive into the Q&A session that Jayden Perron did with Walt Ruff of the Carolina Hurricanes as the beat writer, and talked to the 19-year-old from Winnipeg who was the 2023 third round pick, and the fact that he got to play at North Dakota and all that stuff. So we're going to jump in and look at some of the questions that were kind of get an idea of who Jayden Perron is, and just talk about over the last year and everything that's just adjusting to USHL, to college, and all that good stuff. So the first question that Walt did ask him was, how was your first year in North Dakota? Because Jackson Blake was there. There was a lot of other stuff going on, going from USHL to college, and Jayden said it was good. It was fun. It's a pretty crazy playing in front of those fans every single night. It didn't matter who we were playing against. It was basically sold out, or it was sold out. That made the environment a lot of fun. For those, everyone who does watch college hockey, the North Dakota, formerly the Fighting Sioux, now it's the Fighting Hawks. They have former players like Jonathan Toews has been there as well. It's still a good program, but back in like the early to mid 2000s, like that was a perennial power in NCAA hockey, especially for the men's side of things. That when you say, "Oh, I'm going to North Dakota," it's like, okay, yeah, it's a pretty prestigious school. Talking like other schools like Minnesota, BU, Boston College, stuff like that. You're looking at it was one of those other teams where it's like, if you say I went to this school to play hockey, you knew you were like the cream of the crop. You were that dude to be able to go there. So the fact that he was able to go play North Dakota, and of course, if you know anything about North Dakota hockey, the fans are always there. They're always loud. It is a really hard place to play. So yeah, being able to be in front of a sold out crowds like that is got to be definitely an experience for a guy like Jayden Perron, who's only 19 years old, and from Canada. Seeing going from, what it's like in Winnipeg, you're going to North Dakota, which is like, you don't think there's a lot going on there, but that's when you see the fan base that is for the hockey program at North Dakota. Yeah, it gets pretty loud and pretty ruckus. And, the follow-up question was, what were some of the biggest adjustments for you to go from playing in the United States Hockey League or the USHL to the college game? And Jayden said, I learned that there are no easy games in college, and that was something you have to get used to. You can't take a game off. It was a good challenge. It helped make things fun, but at the same time, that was probably the biggest thing. And yeah, that's the really big thing too, because you look at the USHL, you're talking like teams, like the Youngstown Phantom, the US development team, Green Bay Ramblers. It's one of those things where it's like, it's almost like a junior-esque league where you're trying to. There's going to be a lot of guys who are going to be, going to college, and you see, like, if you watch any of those USHL teams, they're going to see a lot of logos next to their lineup cards of like, okay, there's this college, there's this team that drafted them and stuff like that. It's one of those junior-ish leagues where it's like it's under the NCAA, so it's like a lot of players use the USHL to leapfrog them into college or go to CHL or however you want to do it. So it's one of those things where you're taking. There's only so many games you have in the USHL, and of course, it's prolonged for a normal season as well. But then you go to college, you're talking less than 35 games, less than 40 games, and you got to be on it every night. Because just like college football, where you kind of have to win almost every night. Hockey is not so much the same thing. You have to win every night, but you have to make sure that you're winning games consistently to make sure you put yourself in a good spot for like your conference tournament games. And then you got to go on conference, tournament runs, like in college basketball and baseball, all that, to be able to make sure that you're able to get ready and go find a way to get into the, tournament as well, and then get into the Frozen Four. So yeah, it's a grueling season for NCAA hockey. So that's a huge thing as well. And talking about, like I said earlier about Jackson Blake, Walt did ask Jayden Perron what it was like to be able to have a close-up view of Jackson Blake's season, because he was nominated as a Hobey Baker finalist. How special was that for Jayden to see a teammate like Jackson Blake be able to have, be a finalist for the Hobey Baker, which is hockey's equivalent of the Heisman Trophy, or the lacrosse's the Tewaaraton Trophy, stuff like that, basically. Jayden Perron said it was electric. Getting to watch him every night, there was definitely fun. Everyone sees all the highlights, but all the guys on our team see how hard he works and how hard he practices. That carries over to the game, and it's just fun to watch. And that's one of the things where it's really cool to see that you get to see the fact that you've got two guys who are part of the Hurricanes organization, they're prospects. They were just at prospect camp together, and the fact that they were also, college teammates, which is really fun to see. So that's awesome. The fact that you get to see like the inside of what Jayden Perron saw with a guy like Jackson Blake. Now Jackson Blake, is with the Carolina Hurricanes, not so much a prospect anymore, for that correction, but just the fact that you have two guys in the same organization. One had his NHL debut, one's in prospect camp, and hopefully you get to see them back together eventually soon. And to wrap up, there's a lot of like quick answer, questions and answers too. And I like it is like this little segment of like, funniest guys, favorite restaurants, foods, and stuff like that. So for the quick rapid fire, is Walt asked, favorite food. Jayden Perron said French fries. He didn't say really matter where it's from. Favorite song right now is Sleeve by Nate Smith. So go check it out if no one has checked it out yet. And he said the funniest guy in the locker room this week. And Jayden Perron said, I've been able to room with Jackson Blake. So I guess I'll go with him. He's always fun to hang around. So just going back to them being together in North Dakota, funniest guy in the room. And I think Canes prospects even said it too on social media that Jackson Blake's a really funny guy, and a lot of the other prospects like him. So it's cool to see you guys kind of get that interaction with Jayden Perron, just kind of get to know him as a player on and off the ice, being able to develop himself, go through development camp, and just being able to see, interacting with guys like, Jackson Blake, kind of seeing his progression from the USHL, going from Winnipeg to the U.S. Hockey League, now going to the NCAA for North Dakota. And, does he go back to college, or does he try and make the AHL next year with the Chicago Wolves? So who knows, but it's definitely exciting. And, great way to wrap up at day 3, which was their last on-ice activities. Now, today on Thursday, it's just going to be a lot of education stuff, and then, them, getting ready to go off and enjoy the rest of their summer. But that will wrap up the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. If you want to keep up with me, anything that I'm doing covering the Carolina Hurricanes, you can follow me at OneCheerZach. Podcast is LO_Hurricanes. If you click the link to my bio, you can find out where to find all my newsletters and articles that I do with the hockey writers. You can also go check out my work at the Calder Times for anything AHL related. There's a link to where to listen and watch my other podcasts, the Searchcast, and there's a link to where to listen to this podcast on all podcast platforms. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review because it'll help grow the pod to get more exposure out there. If you do it if you're on the YouTube side of things, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you don't miss the show, hit the thumbs up button, let me know if you like the show as well, because that also helps the algorithm getting the show out more as well. And make sure to share the podcast with other Caniacs so they become everydayers just like you, because we are over 910 subscribers on YouTube. And we're on the road to 1,000. And if we get to 1,000, I might just do something special for you guys. But I hope everyone enjoyed the Thursday episode of Locked On Hurricanes. I hope everyone enjoys their Thursday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.